It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. We're going to be talking about the management fires that have been putting quite a bit of smoke over the last couple of months, but there are important reasons why those fires are taking place. Vic Morfin back in studio with us today. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You're the Forest Fuels Manager for Coconino National Forest, and then Brianne McGee, Public Information Officer for the Coconino National Forest. You got more hats than that, though. You're busy.
I wear a lot of hats.
And since you were in, I thought I'd ask you real quick before we get into the management fire part. You go off and fight fires.
I am a public information officer for, as part of an incident management team that will go to any fire in the nation. We'll help out folks outside of Arizona, outside of the region, wherever we're needed, really.
Have you been taken out this year?
My team was assigned to the slide fire, so it was nice to do something local, and I'll be taking an assignment. I'm getting ordered to one of the fires near Leavenworth, Washington, starting this weekend.
Gotcha. So, okay, so you'll be off and about.
We'll do some traveling.
Folks, I don't know Brianne's voice. She's on the air quite a bit. You and Brady Smith are both very helpful with when I call looking for information. And then Vic was here just a couple months back. We were talking about the slide fire when you were here and kind of the course the fire took and stuff through Oak Creek Canyon and above on the rim. Let's get into the management fires. I came back from vacation with my wife in mid-July. And I was telling you just before the show we were coming eastbound on 40 and there's this big column of smoke. Turns out it's the Sitgreaves Complex fire by Parks. Big sign says, don't report management fire. I thought, okay, fine. Further down the road, there's another fire. You can see it. I think it's the Bar M over by Mormon Lake. I could see that one from a long distance away, and I thought, oh boy, I'm going to have to go back to work right away. And then we head southbound 17, and there's another huge column of smoke, bigger than the other two, and it looks almost like it's in the same place as the slide fire, but that turns out to be the Willard fire. And again, ADOT has those handy signs out that say management fire, do not report. We've had a lot of smoke and a lot of fire. Tell me about these management fires. What are they?
You bet. One thing that changed after the slide fire, about a month later, we got the monsoons. And so as those conditions changed, all of a sudden the forest that was very volatile and we could see extreme fire behavior and bad results, generally speaking. Things change, and now it's moderated. Fuel conditions are a lot more ideal for allowing fire to burn somewhat naturally. So that's kind of the mode we've been in the last few weeks. And so we're taking advantage of those opportunities as we get fire in the right place at the right time. We can work with the fire and help it do what it would have done naturally.
The forest looks so different today than it did just a month and a half ago. I mean, going from grass that's a couple inches high to now we have grasses that are a couple feet high. So the forest has improved. It's healthier right now, isn't it? The monsoon has helped dramatically. Fire danger?
Certainly, certainly. We went from extreme to moderate over the last month or so. So we're a long ways from where we were at during the slide fire conditions. And you bet, as you walk out in the woods now, it's not so crunchy.
Right.
And what we're seeing on the ground, especially 2-3 weeks ago before this last pulse of moisture, is it's moving low rates of spread, it's cleaning up, it's consuming those big logs we call 1,000-hour fuels down to gray ash. So it's really, those conditions, especially a couple weeks ago, were just ideal, getting a lot of good things done, and that's probably when you saw those big plumes of smoke. And then we got the moisture, and now things are kind of surviving, real low-key fire behavior, low-key fire effects at this point in time.
So what starts a management fire, and then how do we determine, okay, this is going to be a management fire?
Well, first of all, they have to be naturally caused.
Okay.
Lightning, no human-caused fires.
Gotcha.
We don't manage those, we put those out.
Okay.
And then I'm going to let Bree speak, since I've been doing all the talking.
Keep on.
But generally, the conditions are right. You know, like you said, the fire danger is no longer extreme, it's more moderate vicinity. And then we have resources around to be able to help to deal with it. So engines, hotshot crews, helicopters, whatever it takes. We have to have adequate staffing. So if it's in the right place, conditions are right, we have the right resources on board to deal with it. Those are some of the things that go into that decision process.
It was pretty amazing because, I mean, you had 5 Coconino had 4 or 5 lightning spark fires, right?
Well, we had a whole bunch, but we were managing 4 at one time.
Right. So you had more than that, obviously, that happened. But 4 of them stayed management fires. And then the Kaibab National Forest had 3 or 4 as well. And then Prescott National Forest had just a few, just I think last week or the week before, they had some too. Time is flying by so fast for me lately. But that's a whole lot of fires going on at the same time. Let me ask you this: the resources put onto a management fire. Let's say let's pick the Willard fire because it's burning between Oak Creek Canyon and I-17, correct? It
was, yes.
And before I get to that, was that also the area that we were concerned about when the slide fire hit? Is that includes Pump House Wash and that area? Is that right? No?
It was just to the east of Oak Creek Canyon.
Okay.
Between the east side of Oak Creek Canyon and I-17. So the thought there is, fuels work up there, it could make the difference. If something were to start on the other side of Oak Creek Canyon during those same conditions we had during slide fire, once you get up to that top, treatments like this could really make the difference.
So this is the area that the slide fire eventually would have gotten up to?
If fire had moved across the highway and the creek into the other side of the canyon, it very could possibly have moved up into this spot here for the
because that was the concern during the slide fire. I remember Pump House Wash was this huge tactical position. Don't let the fire get into Pump House Wash, which leads up onto the top of the rim of Oak Creek Canyon, correct? And then runs up there. That was the pre-evacuation for Coconino Village too. So what has the Willard fire done out there?
It's done a lot of the same things that all these fires have done in terms of reducing fuel loads, cleaning up the forest. And the thing about where it was at physically is if you picture the slide fire where it was the end of the first night, right at Cave Springs Campground, above Cave Springs Campground. This fire, as a crow flies, is right across the street, immediately east of there. And so, as you said, that was our fears that fire would get on the east side of 89 and then want to go up Pump House or up where Willard is at. So it was in the perfect location for getting ahead of this stuff strategically.
Did we just get lucky with all these lightning strikes? Did they just happen to hit in the right areas to be able to have them to manage these fires?
Well, it's important to remember that fires have been happening here naturally, and it's a necessary part of this ecosystem. It's been going on. This is how Mother Nature cleans her house long before humans settled in the area. So on average, we get maybe 400 fires a year, and the majority of those are lightning caused during this time of the year. So just like any wildfire, a lightning-caused fire is a wildfire. So when these guys get there on the ground, they're going to do just like they would for any other wildfire. They're going to look at where it's burning, how it's burning, where it could be burning, what kind of severity it's going to do, looking at the weather, and then they're going to make a plan. And it usually involves doing some perimeters, just like any other wildfire, and some burnout operations similar to any other wildfire. The difference is these conditions we have here make these wildfires that much better. And sometimes a lightning-caused fire just doesn't really fit the right conditions. We don't think it's going to move in the right spot. We don't think it's going to do the right kind of work on the ground that it should be, so we'll go ahead and put it right out, regardless of what time of year it is.
And obviously, we should probably say it anyways, though, but if it were to strike near homes or property or people, obviously that gets put out right away.
Exactly. We look at all of the values at risk. Right next to the pothole fire was a fire that was pretty close to one of the KV lines. So we made sure to do some protection there and make sure it didn't go that direction. Obviously, private property is a huge one. We've got archaeological sites out there we want to protect, habitat. We have these goals that we'll set that fire can achieve that no other treatment by hand could ever do. And we want to make sure that we wrangle that fire to meet those objectives. And the moment that those goals aren't going to be met or we don't think it's going to work, we maneuver things so that we make sure to avoid any negative consequences.
All right, let's take a first break already. Bria McGee and Vic Morfin in studio today with the Coconino National Forest. I'm Paul David. We're talking about management fires. Stick around, county-wide, back in just a couple minutes.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Welcome back to County Wide. We're talking about management fires with the Coconino National Forest today. Vic Morphin and Brian McGee in studio today. My question is this. I'm confused as to how we determine what a management fire is. I was under the impression that if, let's say, Vic, you've mapped out an area that, okay, we want to do a prescribed fire here, we want to do one over here. Those are where our prescribed fires are going to be, and then lo and behold, Mother Nature comes along and zaps a bolt of lightning right here. This area has already been mapped out, and we know exactly what action we're going to take with that and let that one burn. Is that always the case? Is it a pre-planned area, or?
It's not.
Okay.
You know, sometimes by coincidence, a fire we're managing for resource objectives will occur in a prescribed burn.
Okay.
And sometimes it's half and half. But that's by coincidence generally. It is more a case of when the conditions are right. And as one of our fire management officers, Rick Miller, says, it's like realty. It's location, location, location.
Okay.
And so when we get about a couple hundred lightning fires a year on the Coconino alone, and when we look at a map and we see where it's located in the right spot, like the Willard, you know, referencing the slide fire, and we had one, the Bar M, was immediately south and west of the Flagstaff Watershed Protection, Mormon Mountain.
Okay, I'm with you.
It was immediately southwest of there, so we looked at that on a map and said, hey, this is a great opportunity to put a fire buffer ahead of that watershed. So it'll help a future prescribed fire. So the biggest thing is spatially where it's at, and then fuels-wise, fuels conditions, dryness, where we're at. And this year, about 2-3 weeks ago, right after the monsoons, we had that drying trend, and it put us right there where we would be prescribed fire burning conditions, fuels-wise. And so when the vegetation's right, which it was, especially 2-3 weeks ago, that's when you'll tend to see a lot more smoke in the air and a lot more of these fires being managed.
How much fuel has to be on the ground before we decide we need to go in there and do some cleaning?
In this ecosystem, you could literally be in there every 2 to 12 years. That's
Okay.
what used to be there. And now with 100 years of fuel buildup, it's hard to find an area on this forest that we couldn't do that. It wouldn't be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the whole forest really needs it.
It does.
It's just a round-the-clock job, basically, right?
It is.
And
And even after one prescribed fire, there's always the maintenance, because again, naturally that would occur every 2 to 10 years or so. So there's always the need to go back every time.
You brought some pictures with you, and I'm looking at them as we're talking and stuff, and I noticed that there's a lot of this forest area looks very healthy. You can see quite a ways back in here. Now, where these fires are burning this year, these management fires, are these areas that have been thinned out? And I know we have some lumber operations going on and stuff, or are these areas that had not seen that yet?
It's a little of both, but it's generally areas that have not seen that yet.
Okay.
We had a couple projects on the Mogollon Rim where we drew our lines based on future timber sales. We've painted them so they'll be cut.
Okay.
And so we actually had to keep fire out of there for now because there will be treatments in there.
That's off that Forest Road 535, which was also key during the slide fire, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about these fires. Let's start with the Willard. I think we talked about the Willard a little bit. It's been doing, I think people know exactly where it is between Oak Creek Canyon and I-17. And I don't think some people realize that the wind blows up the canyon during the day. Maybe, Vic, you were the one to talk about it. And then it blows back down the canyon at night, and that's what pulls the smoke down in the Verde Valley and Sedona.
Right.
And we have a lot of smoke this year. There's no doubt about it. How do we monitor that and determine, okay, we've got too much. There's just too much smoke. It's bothering too many people, and we need to put these fires out. Does that ever take place, or how do we determine that?
That's certainly in the recipe. In addition to having to control the fire and trying to meet objectives with the fire and managing resources and whatnot, we're always looking at the forecast. What's the ventilation index? Which way's the wind blowing? Where's the transport winds? So we're putting that in that decision process, and that'll determine sometimes how big we're going to burn that day. Are we only going to burn 20 acres, or are we going to try to burn 1,500 acres? So I guess I would just say that it's kind of part of the recipe. And we're monitoring that along with ADQ and trying to stay ahead of that so we don't dump a bunch of smoke into an area.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, so once we've made a commitment to utilize this fire to achieve those benefits that we know it can, we can't necessarily turn it off with a switch. Mm-hmm. So the smoke is going to be a byproduct of that, and we do know that that's one of those impacts to the community that we've got to keep an eye on. Some of the things that we'll do to try and mitigate that, like Vic said, we might try and, under certain weather conditions, burn more or less. We'll try and do all of our burns earlier in the day to give the majority of that smoke some time to dissipate. And we try and do as much of those planned burnout operations that we can in a few number of days to make that heavy smoke impact over the long term much shorter. So we're talking days instead of weeks or months.
We talked about that too with the Willard one, especially because it was putting up quite a bit.
Right.
And then the Bar M kind of took over from that after the Willard kind of died down. What we should probably talk about, what are the benefits fire does for the forest floor?
So a lot of different things here. First and foremost, it's picking up a lot of those fuels that could lead to really severe fire behavior during those really hot, dry months. So it's cleaning up some of those big logs. It's climbing up some of the tree trunks to take off some of those small branches. They're kind of called ladder fuels because they can act as a ladder for fire to climb to the crown.
I don't think I've ever had anybody explain that to me
So
before. Okay.
when we raise those crown heights, that gives us a nice buffer to keep fire on the ground. It makes that a safer spot for our firefighters to go in. Obviously, a place where the fire is going to burn lower and slower, even in the hotter, drier months, is going to be safer for the public. And then we have the biological piece of this. In this climate, we don't get that mulching process like we do see in other wetter climates. In order for the nutrients that are stuck in these dead fuels to get recycled back into the soil, fire's got to be that catalyst. Okay. So it'll take all of those nutrients that are stored in the dead leaves, some of the pine needles and such that are on the ground, it'll recycle that back into the soil and let those new and healthy plants grow in the place of them. So now we have a nice healthy understory. We've got these taller crown heights. We've got less fuel on the ground, and even in some areas it's natural for some little clusters of trees to even completely burn as a way to create that natural pocket and some diversity in the forest.
Look at you teaching me things today. We got to take another break. All right, we're going to take a quick couple-minute break. We're talking management fires with the Coconino National Forest today. Stick around. Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
We finally bought a place.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
So at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save. How is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Good one, son.
Last summer, my new dad took me on vacation. First, we went deep sea fishing.
Wow! I'm so proud of you, son.
And then we went on Thunder Shark. That was awesome! Let's go again. 3 times. I gotta say, it was pretty cool.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Oh, not again.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Let's switch to Energy Star light bulbs and stop burning through cash. Saving energy saves you money.
A single ember from a wildfire can travel over a mile. You can't control where it will land, only what happens before it does. Visit fireadapted.org to learn how to protect your community from wildfires.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a couple minutes left in the program. Let's ask Vic and Brienne here, are we going to have many more of these management fires? Because the smoke is down now, and I have to say, even for me, it bothered me a little bit, because every time I either came to work or left work, it was just this light blue-gray haze constantly, it seemed like, for most of the summer. I understand why this has to be done, and you know it's going to help out in the long run. But are we going to have many more management fires in the future here for the rest of the monsoon? Things are pretty wet out there. The grass has got big, but will we allow management fires?
Well, you know, we're going to continue to do that, and I'd say we're kind of slimming down, so to speak. We were at 4, and now we're managing 2, and part of that thought process is giving folks a break from the smoke, and another part is supporting the national fire season. Okay. So we're sending more resources up north to help out in Washington and Oregon, while still maintaining some capacity to manage fires here.
What size of crew actually manages a fire? How many people are out there and equipment? Just real quick.
Just like any other wildfire, it'll depend on how big it is, how big it could be. Typically, though, this time of year in a managed wildfire, it's much fewer. A couple of engine crews. Sometimes on Willard Fire, towards the peak of that incident, we had a few hotshot crews on scene, and we always maintain somebody there to monitor things well into when you can not see any more smoldering. But definitely expect to see smoke in the air, and this time of year, the smoke is burdensome, but the result is something that's far worth, you know, the payoff. As far as Bar M goes, which is the one near Mormon Lake, even despite all of the rain that we saw this past, some of it's starting to rekindle within the interior.
It's amazing.
So yeah, we will absolutely see some fire, and that's exactly how Mother Nature did this before we were here. Mm-hmm. This, you know, it'll rekindle a little bit, and it'll burn at a different kind of severity. It'll dry out, and it'll burn a little bit more, and then it'll get wet, and it'll settle down again. This is exactly the type of pattern that needs to happen in these forests. So.
Now, these pictures you brought today, which we don't have up on the screen, but you brought some really neat pictures of the burns that we're doing right now, the management fires. These are on your website?
These are on our website. They're also on our Flickr site, flickr.com/Coconino National Forest. Okay, so yeah, I would encourage people to go take a look at those. And then Vic, you said before the show, the management fire season's kind of up, but the prescribed fire season should be coming up around the corner here as well. So we will have some more burning going on. You bet. Typically around September, October is kind of our peak burn season for prescribed fire. And so yeah, that is coming up soon, and it'll be full steam ahead once we get to those types of conditions. Okay, and then you guys will tell us, and we'll tell them, and everybody will be hopefully happy. Good to see you, Brienne. Thanks for having me back.
You look great. Haven't seen you in a couple of years. Vic, nice to see you again. That's today's Countywide. We will talk to you again next time.